Hi, Mina.
Hi, Natasha. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Good to see
Okay, so
you.
good to see you too. So we're just going to give it a couple of minutes,
Okay,
a couple of seconds actually, just to let people join, and then we'll get right into our conversation.
great. Excellent.
So, what's on the cards next? I know you've
Oh
been
boy.
going all over the place.
Well, we have a big event at the Jaipur Literature Festival. I'm producing performance actually for
Nice.
the grand finale of it. So excited about that. And then there's one exhibition that we're doing in January on the eve of Republic Day, which will have some artists from the upside that we're
Right.
dropping NFTs for on that particular day. So we're excited about that show.
Nice, nice. Lots of things coming up in the new year.
Yes, yes. How about you?
Good. So we are, of course, in the process of testing everything on the Upside space, and we should be doing the whole big launch soon. And we're very excited to be able to share the platform with, of course, so many
Great.
people.
Right.
Because it's exciting also that our focus is so much on these regions of Southeast Asia, South Asia, and the Middle East, which normally get, overlooked, especially when it comes to contemporary art. So quite excited to share that.
It is, it is. I really love that it's, comprehensive of more than just one particular country and it's, works from associated, sort of like a global south, if you will, but more South Asia focused. So it's very exciting. I'm looking forward to seeing all those exhibitions as well.
Right. Okay. So I think we're good on time. It is 2 minutes past our starting time. Uh,
Okay.
so yes, hello everyone, and welcome to this Insta Live session on the Upside Space. The Upside Space is a curator-led digital art platform with a focus on art from Southeast Asia, South Asia, and the Middle East. Today, we are talking about the digital art scene in India, and joining us today is Maina Mukherjee. And I'm so fascinated by her bio, and I'm going to read this out for you. Maina is a curator and the founder director of Engendered, a New York, New Delhi-based transnational arts and human rights organization with a focus on the intersections of gender and marginalities in South Asia. Maina is a technology, finance, and managing strategy consultant by training, but she left a successful career on Wall Street to produce and curate the best in contemporary South Asian art, cinema, and performance festivals in New York. She has also been very instrumental in the growing digital NFT art space in India, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But I'm so glad that you could join us today, Maina. Thank you so much for taking the time to be on this conversation.
Thank you, Natasha, for inviting me. I'm very excited for this conversation as well.
Okay, so I have to start off, of course, with the fascinating thing about your background is that, you were on Wall Street and now you're in contemporary art. How did this switch happen?
Well, before that, I actually was in classical Indian dance because I left Wall Street for dance. And I was always really interested in, well, the change happened very organically. I felt that everything leads to everything else. And I was very interested in the politics of representation. I was in New York at a very exciting time when there was a lot of conversation around in the diaspora around how South Asians were defining their identities, and it was an exciting time for music, for culture. The underground music scene had started with Talvin. And I was very keen that South Asia be seen as more than just four or five artists. And I took a sabbatical from my career on Wall Street. I'd been working 7 years and I quite enjoyed it. I was in technology and finance. And I took a break, and there was absolutely nothing to produce. I wanted to be a cultural producer, but there wasn't anything to produce. So I started a dance theater company, a classical Indian feminist dance theater company that reappropriated a lot of tropes that were often used to kind of box and put us into some stereotypical sort of definitions of what South Asia was, and we wanted to break some of that. So we were New York's first South Asian brown dance theater company that was also political. And post that, I mean, for 4 years, New York was very embracing of the company. We were very celebrated. For New York Times reviews later, I had a knee accident and I didn't want to be a bitter dancer. And I decided that this was the time to kind of lend solidarity to other art forms, multidisciplinary art forms. I felt that a lot of the voices in these sort of spaces were very siloed and weren't talking to each other, but the kind of work that they were doing was very much echoing of what other artists in different forms are doing. So then Engendered became this space as a test project at the Lincoln Center to bring together art practitioners from different disciplines into one space, and where they could lend and share their visions, their work, and also the challenges, and sort of be a festival. But from there, it became 4 festivals in a very short period of time. I felt like I birthed a monster, baby monster, very loved one, but and eventually I was always excited about news and what is contemporary, what's around us. For me, art and politics were never really separate, and everything led to everything else, and I've just been continuing down that path. And of course, art is a disruptor in so many ways, and conversations of our generations is really sort of embodied by artists. So here's where I am now.
That's fascinating. I love the whole
Right.
trajectory because I kind of feel it's also bringing you back to a full circle moment with what you're
Absolutely.
doing now, especially with technology. But we're going to come to
Absolutely.
that later.
Yeah.
So what's interesting is, with performance and with cinema, they're all digital mediums, right? And digital mediums haven't really been. It's not anything new, right? Digital mediums such as like film and videos and animation
Of
have
course.
been used by artists. Is even in India for quite a while, like Ranbir Kalika, Nalini Malani come to mind. But as a medium, it hasn't sort of been very pop. It hasn't been accepted very much, I would say. But right now, it sort of seems like there's a coming of age for this medium in particular. And I wanted you to shed a little bit of light on the contemporary art scene in India today and why you think it's having this sort of coming of age moment.
Well, you're absolutely right. I think, artists like Ranbir, Shiba Chachi, Raghava KK, all of them have been working with the digital medium. Some of them have been where the work is digitally born, but it has taken on manifestations of installations or physical works that are more than just one screen, perhaps. And I think artists have been feeling their way through this medium to try to figure out what it is that they would like to embody in their works. And so far, what has happened, like you rightly said, is that they have needed the physical space of a gallery,
Mm.
and to kind of bring some of these manifestations to life. What happened during COVID was that a lot of that changed. And artists want to create, but artists also need viewership. And during the COVID time, not just artists, but also institutions uh, and different kinds of, uh, you know, creators use the digital media to talk to each other, to lend support, to be in solidarity with each other, and also to find newer audiences. And I think that really changed the way people started imagining the dispersion of digital art. So, and I think that, and that led to the growth of digital art, that and the understanding that technology really holds the key to the future of the art sector, whether it's museums, whether it is, and suddenly this potential was unlocked. And there has been, more and more digital artists have been emerging. They still have a lot of challenges. There's they're going from fine art to kind of popular art to gamers to artists who are communities and want to support each other. All of these things started happening, and so I think that we are at this point in time in a sort of churning of lots of different energies in the art world that are creating this situation where museums are now forced to look more carefully at digital art. Collectors are looking at digital art. People are thinking about how to display digital art
Mm.
for collectors in a more sort of long-term manner. And so all of these conversations are happening. So I feel it's not just India, but across the world, I think this shift is taking place.
I think it's also interesting because you did speak about the art of our generation. I also feel that this is sort of becoming the medium of our generation, right? I mean,
Absolutely, absolutely.
you now have artists like painters who will actually create a digital collage before making the physical painting.
Sure,
Which is such a fascinating
sure,
sort of reversal of
sure.
physical versus digital.
Right.
Um,
I also think that artists are not limited any longer. It's just one of the mediums that they don't see it as something that needs to be, constricted to just one medium type. I think a lot of artists have been doing that already. I mean, Ranbir's works have projections, digital projections, but then he also paints on them. There are sculptures involved. That's true for a lot of other artists, younger artists like Raghava KK. Even Harshita Agarwal, who work with AI, but only as a tool. I mean, the
mm,
idea is to think of all these digital mediums as just that, as different mediums that you experiment with. So people are not limited by, they don't think that we're going to make art that is only digital, but they know that digital is a way to create art. So it's just one more tool to play with and to create work with, for
right.
sure.
I mean, of course, does come with its own challenges, right? And because of which it's sort of struggle to find a collector base, like you said, even displaying it. So how do you see that changing with the way? And I know that, of course, COVID played a large role in digital art becoming much more popular and much more accessible. But when it comes to a collector base, um, what has been your sort of observance of this? Of it, where do you see it growing? How do you see what kind of a collector base do you see in the future?
I think that, you know, digital is a very important part of the art world in the future. I wouldn't say that it's only digital art, but it is I would say that harnessing the technology of digital is something that will play a very major role in the way we consume art, in the way we create art, in the way we disperse art, and in the way that we collect art as well. And I say that because, I come from a time when I saw so many forms of art change, like whether it's music or whether it's dance. There was a time when dance was only about movement, and then it became about stillness. I saw, very many major musicians start playing with silence, and they have become, over the years, I mean, I've seen the internet change the way that we consume everything, not just art, the way we consume music, for example, on Spotify right now. It's changed, how we think of listening, how we think of, watching a movie, how we think of reading a book. So, I mean, art is the next frontier for sure. It cannot escape, technology and the kind of advancements in technology that's happening. It's inevitable. I definitely think that. Um, However, like you said, there are challenges. A lot of fine art or high art is about rarity. And one of the things about digital art is that it can be reproduced, it can be created. Technology allows, continuous multiplication of editions for it. And so there is a balance in the way we think about worthiness of art. Is art really worthy when it is limited? Can we harness technology to perhaps, suddenly make accessible artworks by well-known artists who would otherwise not be accessible to, uh, newer collectors who are just beginning their journey of collection? So kind of reversing the way we think about the value of art. Technology enables us to do that and to disrupt that entire area. On the other hand, technology is also, I mean, a lot of people have been thinking art fairs included, traditional places of collection for art, like museums, etc., are thinking about displaying work, preserving work. How do you keep work, the longevity of digital artwork? And I think there are lots of players who are looking. I mean, there was a time when um, reproduction of digital works before the geekly print came out. A lot of collectors felt like if you they could not get a good quality print of digital work, right? But that has changed now. A lot of people felt that digital art, people are thinking very much about how do you create work that can be displayed the way that you would display physical work. So even if it is digital, how do you physically view it? How do you physically keep it where it is native to the technology for which it has been created? So now there are TVs from major sort of technology brands, mainstream technology brands like Samsung, etc., that only allow for works to be projected, not through a
Right.
USB or to a file, but directly from, say, an NFT onto the screen. And that's the only way that you could see it. So all of this technology is constantly changing. There are some, I was in New York recently, and it was during the very well-known the Armory Art Fair. And there were so many, major sort of display versions of how to view NFTs or digital art. There were screens that were specially created that are square in size for artists who are creating on Instagram or
Right.
on, so all of these changes are happening, and collectors are getting collectors are understanding that there are ways to kind of think of digital art as paintings that you would keep and
Right.
display in your house. We worked with the MIT Media Labs on something that is called Infinite Objects, and
Right.
which lets you print videos, and they are without cords. They can be charged, and you can display them and keep them just like you would keep a photograph in a house. So all sorts of exciting sort of innovations in technology are also happening to for to kind of create that space for collectors to start thinking differently about digital art as well.
I think it's also like a generational thing, right? Like with every generation, the physical or the tangible is sort of less important or is as important as the intangible, and the digital. And then, therefore, that whole thing of like needing a tangible object as what you call
Sure.
art is changing
Right.
as well. And all
Right.
of us, of course, are also viewing things on screens constantly, right? Like you're on your
Right.
phone, on your laptop, on the iPad.
Right.
And so
Right.
it makes sense to also have your art over there.
Sure.
Um,
Sure. I
a
mean,
lot,
this the artificial intelligence today also sort of knows what you are viewing constantly and curates that viewership for you, and plays partner in what you see and what you're going to consume, in every way. Like I said, for music, for film. I mean, Netflix has a way to kind of curate your choices for you. You think that you're making a choice, but really you're not. AI is as much a part of it. You think that you're choosing something to buy, but really you're not. So yeah, I mean, I think everything is changing, and given those changes, I feel like digital, not just in terms of the medium of artwork, but digital also in how we consume and how we understand art is changing constantly.
Also what we assign value to, right? Like, I mean, I
Yes.
know,
Yes.
and this is going to come into the next question. I know that like you have been a big cheerleader of NFTs, and that sort of comes to a full circle moment with your background in
Yeah.
technology. Um, and I
Yeah.
know you've created like several
Yeah, and
digital.
I think that I'm one of the only people who's like cheering, given the crypto freeze across the world. But I mean, it's impossible for me. I mean, I'm very confident in saying that, irrespective of what we go through in the next few years, um, technology platforms is really the future. It's inevitable. NFTs are inevitable. They are the most secure way of purchasing art, of archiving, of having provenance, clear provenance, and so eventually everything will shift to NFTs. And even for the crypto market right now, given that there's such a lot of instability in it, I think the NFT and the fact that there is a value to art irrespective of whether the currencies go up and down. I think that is really going to save the crypto world as well in many
So
ways.
what in particular drew you to this technology?
Um, I mean, I'm a finance and technology major. I've always loved technology. It's exciting, it's disruptive. Um, I've followed technology very avidly. Um, what drew me to it is a couple of years back, I curated one of the largest expositions that India's had to the West, and it was for Artissima, and there were about 300 artworks from 63 artists. And generally, what you get to see abroad, and I've lived as a diaspora for several years, over 25 years of my life. I get very frustrated by what I get to see. I mean, and it's always controlled by someone else. One of the most amazing things about technology is that it really sort of democratizes who can see what. Suddenly, who the control of who gets to see what changes completely. So for me, that is something that I was very drawn to, because like I said, the politics of representation have always been very important to me. And with the NFT, one of the things also when we did this major exhibition across 3 museums and a major art fair in Italy, which is considered a nerve point for sort of the art world,
Mhm.
international art community. One of the things that I realized was how difficult it is an appreciation for taking volumes of work, beautiful work across, borders and across countries. And uh, and technology is beautiful in how efficient it is about who can see what. I mean, you can share the same kind of aesthetics, the beauty, using digital means. So, I mean, I think that is a very immediate sort of reason why I became a big cheerleader for the NFT. It allowed me to show a lot of artists who would otherwise not be able to have their work shown or their thoughts shared in an international community of viewers. So,
Yeah, I think that's really fascinating that, I keep saying the word fascinating too often, but I think it's such it's almost miraculous that, now geographical boundaries are no longer an issue, right? I mean, on the
absolutely.
outside
Yes,
space, we have curated art from South Asia and the Middle East. And, we have these exhibitions, one of which is from Bhutan, where you actually have a master Tangka painter who is a monk whose work you
right,
can access, right? Which,
right,
unless you went to Bhutan physically and happen to have a contact to go and meet this person, you would never be able to access.
right.
And it's so great
Absolutely.
that you can do that now. Um,
Yes. It is, and this growing faith in this digital art space is reflected not just by cheerleaders like me or you and the Upside Project, but also major institutions. I mean, we recently did a show in New York, and that was we had as one of our partners, the Web3 person for MoMA, because MoMA has just started a Web3 division. And there are other, there's the Museum of Digital Art in Italy, in Milan, which has also recently opened. And one of the most major sort of curators for a physical art fair has joined the digital museum. So you can
Right.
see these shifts happening, and you know that uh, I think, especially people who have children know that that's the medium. Like you said, I mean, we are constantly looking, our entire life is attached somehow to some sort of a digital app or a digital, it's an extension of our life that is just not possible to ignore anymore. So and art is the natural sort of extension to our tastes and our aesthetics, and that's just something that we will consume more and more of in the digital world.
Right. So I do want to make this distinction because, I mean, a lot of people who aren't familiar with Web3 or with NFTs tend to, of course, link it directly with cryptocurrency. And, nowadays
Right.
you can actually, I mean, you can buy an NFT without cryptocurrency at all. You can swipe your
Sure.
credit
Yeah.
card, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
and so at the heart of it, at the very basic level, an NFT is any digital asset which has been registered on the blockchain. And
Right.
of course, today it makes sense if you are a digital artist or a collector of digital art, the best way to buy this is in the form of an NFT, because earlier you would probably get like a pen drive or a link to something, and ownership would again
Right.
be like a piece of paper. But now
Right.
it's really it really sort of streamlines how you own it, who can see it, how it's passed on, provenance, all of that is so much more transparent, right?
Right.
And Lisa and I keep joking about how it's so cool to have digital art in your house, because you don't have to worry about, okay, my parents are coming for dinner and I have this like not suitable for work art display, and I have to like take it off my wall and pack it off. And, I just simply change what's on the screen. I don't have to worry about
Absolutely.
storage, changing nails, any of that. Um, but yeah, coming back to the reason that
And
you should buy.
Natasha, one of the things I wanted to say is that now there are companies, like for example, there's this company called Neo, which
Right.
allows you to loan artwork. So you don't you not only do you just have to just buy, you can also just rent artwork, digital artwork from them.
Right.
So it's like a subscription to Netflix, for example, and you get a curated collection of art. So like you said, if you don't like something one day and you want to see something else in your living room, you just change it. And or if you like if it's not suitable. I mean, we talk about censorship all the time. A lot of the work that I do is sometimes sort of eyebrow raising, and one of the things we always discuss risk. And the one thing that we always laugh and joke about is that, well, if someone doesn't like it and someone objects, we just switch off the screen. So
Exactly.
yes, yes.
So now coming to one of my last questions is that, now digital art, you have a lot of digital art on social media, on several other platforms. In your opinion, are galleries and fairs still needed to validate artists and their works? Or, as you said, is it more equitable where artists are being able to build their own audience? And then, therefore, is this problematic for a collector who maybe wouldn't know where to look and, figure out which art is valuable or not? Or, you know, how does that, how do you manage between these sectors?
So I think that the digital artwork is not going to just come and completely replace the physical. I think that there's a confluence. There's a sort of inter-animation at play between traditional art and digital media. Um, I think everyone's role is going to continue to be important. Um, there is a growing community of artists who are supporting other artists. The gamers, the people who create animation. I think that, and that's wonderful to see. It's wonderful to see artists engage, you know, non-traditional collectors and have their own collector base and their own fans. Fan art is a big thing right now in popular art, and it's wonderful to see the rise of that. But I don't think that that will necessarily replace the traditional collector. And the collector will need, the contextualization of the artwork for a lot of senior creators. And so I think the role of the curator, the role of the gallery, the role of the artist are constantly going to be evolving, but I don't think that they are going to be, replaced or erased in any way. I think for collectors who are, buying digital artworks of senior artists whose prices are high will still want some validation from institutions, will look towards, museums that have collected, will look to curators and to gallery owners to give them that sense of security. But at the same time, there is a rising base of collectors, the younger generation of collectors, who are not just collecting new art based on what they place value on, and they don't need direction or validation from galleries, but they would also want to support other artists who are like them, other creators. So I think both of those roles are going to continue growing, and like I said, it's an inter-animation at play between the traditional collector and the newer sort of neo collector that is emerging right now.
Right. I think what is also going to change is, and I agree with you that none of these roles are going to disappear, but I do think what's going to change is the amount of transparency and exchange that happens within the community at
Sure.
large. Right now, there's a lot of
Absolutely.
closed doors that most people cannot access, and I think that's a mind shift that is changing. People are now more, galleries are now more open to artists being accessible, those kind of things which earlier possibly wasn't there.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And you're also right about right now. Hi,
Hi.
sorry, I think
Okay, I
there's
can hear you now.
a little bit of a drop off
No
there.
worries. No worries.
So yeah, I was saying that right now is also a time for bridging between the old and the new. Um, how
Yeah.
has your experience been with artists who aren't familiar with this space? Have they been open to it? And this is also, of course, with a lot of senior artists, but not just, also with younger artists. How has it been to explain to them, the concept behind an NFT and Web3 and sharing work publicly?
I think it's been more and more gratifying. I've been working with a lot of traditional artists who, or physical artists who are only now beginning to experiment with the digital. I've
Mm-hmm.
also been working with a lot of artists who are very digitally native. Some of this country's best sort of AI artists, most well-known AI artists, oldest, digitally native artists who have been part of the fine art world. And uh, I think as people understand, I think there's a lot of apprehension around how the how the context of their work might be diluted, how their work might be appropriated. There is definitely the fear with senior or more traditional artists. There's also a fear of anything new, of being kind of having the physical medium being replaced,
Mm-hmm.
of having, so there are all of these fears, but I think more and more now artists are curious, and artists by nature, want to push boundaries and create and play with newer mediums. So I think we've been very successful. We've also been very successful with working with some of the most well-known artists in India, like Ranveer Kalekar, etc., to drop their first, to have the faith to drop their first NFTs with us, as we are able to explain better. We have artists like Seema Kohli, Puneet Kaushik. Puneet is a master materialist, works with sort of like craft traditions across India, which are really vibrant, and is considered sort of like a master materialist, like I said. So for him to kind of make a switch over to NFTs and have enough faith in them and work with other, in collaboration with other digital artists and AI artists, and then to have his work appreciated. I mean, I know that his work was looked at by the MoMA acquisition team 3 times while we were in New York. And some of the works are so fantastic as artists also realize how technology can enable rather than replace. I think there is more and more faith, and more and more artists get excited about the possibility of having larger audiences to share their works with. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah. I
But,
think, I
but
think,
it is challenging. I don't want to lie and say that it's all rosy. I mean,
yeah,
I think that a lot of artists are very concerned about like an appropriation of their works, and
of course.
like I said, I mean, any change is faced with some resistance. So I think there is that fear, but I think that there was a time when we could not imagine like reading a book digitally. I mean, we wanted a physical copy
Right.
of it. We consume news always with the newspaper, and today we consume our news on, over Insta or on social media. But that doesn't mean that we've, let go of the newspaper. I mean, I still need a newspaper with my morning cup of tea. So I think that understanding that, everything is going to enhance, and these are worlds that are going to exist together. And there is no way to evade the complexity of this growing world. I think that as more and more artists, curators, galleries understand that, I think that we are going to see more and more exciting collaborations. We are going to see more exciting sort of pushing of boundaries, newer mediums, and newer expressions of work from artists, even
Right.
traditional artists.
Yeah, I completely agree, because I mean, even today, if you look at what digital art has allowed, even in terms of works which are, I bought one of my first NFTs was a work that grew over time. It was an AI
Right,
generated that over a period of 6 months grew and evolved, and it's again,
right.
it's so incredible to be able to see something like a work of art, evolve in front of your
Grow,
eyes. Also,
grow.
it's just
Sure.
that's all because
Very
of technology.
exciting.
So,
Right, right.
as we wind up, I'm just going to open it out to the audience in case anyone has any questions. And while we're waiting for any questions, I want to just ask you, or rather, talk about the upside space. You've been a curator of the upside space, and I know that you said, like, the digital medium is an enabler, but I also see a curator as an enabler. You've been so instrumental in bridging or allowing artists who aren't familiar with the space to enter and experiment and experience with the space, which they wouldn't have been able to without a person like you in the middle. So we do see curators as enablers, as storytellers, to put the digital art that you see online into context. What are the next things that you are looking forward to in this space?
I'm really excited about the upside space also, because I also think that besides, seeing technology as this enabler, I also think that the way we think of creation of art is changing. This is the age of collaboration. This is the age of more experimentation. And so I really love the idea of the upside space. I love that there are, 7 different curations that speak to each other, but yet are distinctly different and are from different parts of the world. You get to, you really start understanding the richness and the depth of diversity that exists in the global South. Um, I I'm very excited to see how this does. I think that this is a very different model from some of the other platforms that I've been curating for, and those have been great too. But I think also the fact that it comes from the East and is very exciting for me. And I'm excited to see how this does. And what do I expect to see more of? I'm working with Harshita Agarwal on some really I mean, we curated one of the first AI solo shows, not just in India, but across the world. And it was appreciated by some of, the Lumen Prize folks, and MIT Media Lab, etc., is one of the best sort of AI solo shows across the world. So I'm very excited to see, the growth of that. We've seen our one of our second shows that was called, Disruptors, Technique
I
Disruptors,
saw
was
that.
completely sold.
Yeah.
Yes, you came to that. That was completely sold to a very major museum in India, one of the largest collectors. So I'm very hopeful, and I want to see what happens next and how artists. I'm always excited about art to see, what kind of new artworks
Yeah.
come. So yeah, I mean, and we are thinking of sort of starting a South Asia-led art fair from the South, but in a Western country,
Right.
New York, actually. And that would be during the time of Asia Week, where Sotheby's and very traditional sort of, the biggest sort of auction houses come together and bring some of the most traditional collectors to have sort of like an NFT, or I mean, NFTs would play a major role in the curation over there. And I'm excited to see how the collector base, the very, very traditional, auction house collectors react to this new sort of advent of artworks.
Yes, exciting times. And again, so many shifting paths that, like,
Yes,
it's difficult to predict how it's going to go, but I think that's also what makes this so
yes.
interesting to be in the space. So I'm going to again ask the audience if are there any questions? I know that Bryce's mom was also talking about the MoMA show that just opened, which was Refik Anadol. And like you did mention, the MoMA has been looking at acquiring
We had
NFTs.
Madeline Pierpoint join us from the Web3 department, and it's their first, they've just opened the Web3 department, I mean, I think 6 or 7 months back. So that's very exciting to see.
Right. Um, Great. Okay, so I don't think we have any questions. Uh, but so thank you so
Mm.
much, Maina, for taking the time to join us, and
Thank
for
you. Thank you, Natasha, for having me.
and of course, the upsidespace.com is live. You can check it out. We are in our soft launch period, so please do check it out. And if you have any feedback, do send it in to us. We look forward to sharing a lot more art coming from Southeast Asia, South Asia, and the Middle East. So stay tuned for that. And Maina, once again, thank you. And
Thank,
we're so excited about the show you've curated for us.
thank you. Thanks, Natasha. Have a great evening, everyone.
You too. See you. Bye.
Bye.